What would happen if you took the Red String of Fate, household hardware equipment, Kamen Rider, and mid-40s jazz, and combined it together and gave it to an egotistical NEET with self-confidence issues? You'd probably have Joshu Higashikata and Nut King Call.
It's for the way you look at me. Oh, it's for the way you can see. It's very, very extraordinary. It's even more than anyone that you know than love is all that I give to you.
Nut King Call is a play on the name Nat King Cole, because in Japanese they're pronounced both ways, where Nut King Call and Nat King Cole are both the same pronunciation. So it's a play on his name. Design-wise, Nut King Call is very resemblant of Kamen Rider, in which it has the big beetle-like eyes and the V in the middle of its head. And being 19, Joshu falls right into Kamen Rider's second biggest age demographic, which means it's very possible that Joshu is a fan of Kamen Rider and that his stand is kind of based around it. Which makes sense with his brother being obsessed with Beatles and all, but also the fact that Joshu kind of gives an otaku-like personality. I'd call him a NEET, but he's also in education, so he's not entirely a NEET. Though he does display, as I said, otaku-like behaviors. In fact, he's part of the idol culture, and it's no real stretch of the imagination to imagine Joshu with a few Kamen Rider figures. More on the design of Nut King Call. Its body is covered with a bunch of bolts in its arms and in its head, and it has a collar made of nuts and bolts. Its aesthetic is fucking fantastic, and it has the triangle design you see on Caesar's headband and like Jotaro's belt. It's a reoccurring design in Araki's works, and it's actually one of the coolest stance designs I've seen in quite a while, honestly. But what's even cooler than Nut King Call's design is its ability, and how it kind of plays into the idea that everything is held together by some sort of force or some sort of object. Usually people go with a string, some form of connector, but with Nut King Call, it is in the form of nuts and bolts, specifically bolts. The JoJo Wiki in the official translation used the word screw, and it's actually wrong. For it to use the word nut in the name of the stand, and the fact that the stand uses nuts, it's not a screw. A screw does not use nuts in its design. A nut is to hold a bolt into place. And by unscrewing the nut, the bolt becomes loose, in which that's how Nut King Call's ability works. Nut King Call has two specific abilities. One of them is to unscrew and take apart something. This is Nut King Call loosens the nut of the object, and it falls off, and the bolt becomes loose, and the object falls apart. It has a second version of this ability, in which it can fuse together two different things. During the Miracle Man arc, where Joshu confronts the man who left his wallet behind to get stolen, he fuses together a dollar bill, which is a solid object, and a bottle of water's water, which is a liquid. So, Nut King Call's ability does not need the same level or the same type of object to fuse them together. It can fuse a solid with a liquid, it can fuse a gas with a liquid, it can fuse a solid with a solid. Who knows what its limitations are, and that's what makes it absolutely terrifying. And that's why when we look at the stats of Nut King Call, we see one big thing about it. Nut King Call has an A in developmental potential, which from this A in developmental potential, we could go directly from String of Fate to string theory with Joshu's ability. Though, be warned, we're about to get into Medi theory potential. Alright, so, JoJo Leon takes place in Steel Ball Run's universe, and in this universe, the spin is a thing that anyone can do. Johnny is the last known spin user besides the father of Gyro. So, Joshu is related to the family in which Johnny married into. So that means that not only does Joshu have access to his own family records, his own great-great-grandmother Rina, but he also has the entire well-documented Steel Ball Run race to check out. If Joshu puts in any effort to learn any form of the spin, and as we see through Johnny, when you put the spin through your stand, you can evolve and do amazing, crazy things. So imagine, for say, Joshu learns how to do the golden rotation. With just that alone, Nut King Call reaches D4C levels of abilities. The ability to unscrew and open up wormholes to possible different dimensions, that wouldn't be too unfeasible, since through a perfect rotation, you spin into multiple universes. Though heaven helps anyone who's on the receiving end of Joshu using Ball Breaker, because that would be fucking devastating. I don't even know what would happen there. I don't even know if I could theorize that. Mainly besides the fact of it just killing you. Though some of the weaknesses of Nut King Call is the fact that once you exit its range, it no longer takes into effect. The effect wears off. It doesn't wear off always correctly, as in your hands can be re-screwed back on completely backwards. But besides that, it also has a E in precision, so it's not exactly the most precise stand. In fact, I'm not even sure if Joshu has full control over it, because he uses it without knowing at first, but then he uses it willingly in his next arc. So it's a little confusing, but he seems to have taken advantage of this stand, and he seems to have gained a form of control over it. And if things go as they are right now, and Joshu keeps growing as a character, I think we can see Nut King Call growing as a stand as well, and that he may in fact become one of the strongest stand users in JoJo Leon. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and a comment. And if you want to give me money, because that's a cool thing to do, you can give it to me at patreon.com/ManyNotTheBadGuy. Buy Shimonetta at Funimation.com/Shimonetta. And have a lovely fucking day.